Ashes and evidence. James stood transfixed as flames consumed the Medicine Hat Bank. Orange light reflecting off the faces of the crowd gathered in the street. The heat reached him even from 50 yards away, waves of it pulsing with each gust of wind. Beside him, Daniel gripped his shoulder, but James barely felt it. The ore. 1,000 pounds of silver-bearing quartz locked in that vault. Their future, their homestead, their chance to fight the consortium. All of it turning to slag in that inferno. The vault, James said hoarsely. Stone and iron, it might. The heat will crack the stone, Daniel said quietly. I've seen it before. Coal mine fire back in Ontario. Even if the ore survives, we can't prove what's in there. No assay, no documentation. James watched Cornelius Webb across the street, the bank manager's face illuminated by the flames. Webb's expression was carefully blank, but something in his posture, the set of his shoulders, the way his hands hung loose at his sides, suggested neither surprise nor particular distress. As if he'd been expecting this. He knew, James said. Daniel followed his gaze, or he was told to look the other way. The volunteer fire brigade had given up trying to save the building. Men with buckets formed a chain to the nearest water trough, but they focused now on wetting down the adjacent structures, the telegraph office, the general store, the hotel. The bank itself was lost. James could hear timbers cracking inside, the roar of flames feeding on decades of paperwork, furniture, wooden fixtures. How many homesteaders' dreams were burning in there? How many loans, deeds, promissory notes turning to ash? And then James saw him again, the consortium's man, standing at the edge of the crowd. This time he didn't bother hiding. He smiled, tipped his hat in mocking salute, and melted into the darkness beyond the firelight. We need to get back to Dr. Harrison's, James said. Now. They pushed through the crowd, James's wounded shoulder protesting as people jostled past. The street was chaos. Townspeople in nightclothes, children crying, dogs barking, horses stamping nervously in their traces. Someone had rung the church bell, the frantic clanging adding to the confusion. James kept his hand on his revolver, scanning faces, looking for other watchers. Dr. Harrison's house sat on the north edge of town, away from the commercial district. As they approached, James saw lamplight in the windows. Eleanor appeared on the porch before they reached the steps, Sarah beside her with a rifle. We saw the glow, Eleanor said. What's burning? The bank, James said. Eleanor's face went white. The ore. All of it. James climbed the steps, suddenly exhausted. The vault might survive, but we can't prove what was in it, Sarah finished. She lowered the rifle, her expression hardening. The consortium. Their man was there, watching, made sure I saw him. Inside, Dr. Harrison waited in the parlor, still dressed despite the late hour. Mrs. Brennan hovered in the kitchen doorway, wringing her apron. Thomas sat on the floor near the fireplace, building something with wooden blocks, but his movements were mechanical, distracted. He looked up when James entered, fear flickering across his young face. Is it bad? Thomas asked. It's bad, James admitted. But we're all safe. That's what matters. He didn't believe it, and from the look on Eleanor's face, neither did she. Dr. Harrison poured whiskey into 5 glasses, sliding them across the parlor table. Tell me everything. James recounted the fire, Webb's reaction, the consortium man's mocking salute. As he spoke, Sarah paced by the window, rifle still in hand, watching the street. Daniel stood near her, their proximity suggesting comfort even in crisis. They've destroyed the evidence, Eleanor said when James finished. Without the ore, without Brennan's assay? We still have Brennan's verbal assessment, Dr. Harrison interrupted. He examined the ore this afternoon. He knows what he saw. Verbal testimony won't secure alone, James said. Not without the ore itself. And even if we go back to the mine, extract more, we're out of time. 6 days until the deadline. 7 days, Sarah corrected from the window. The deadline is November 15th. Today is the 8th. We have exactly 7 days. James looked at his daughter, 19 years old, standing guard with a rifle, calculating deadlines while a bank burned. When had she become this person? When had any of them? 7 days to do what? Eleanor asked quietly. Extract more ore, find another assayer. The consortium will just... She stopped, pressing her hand to her mouth. The room fell silent except for the crackle of the fire and Thomas's wooden blocks clicking together. Mrs. Brennan appeared with a tray of coffee, setting it on the table with gentle efficiency. There might be another way. Dr. Harrison said slowly. He set down his whiskey glass, untouched. If Brennan is willing to put his professional reputation on the line. How? James asked. Dr. Harrison stood, moving to his desk in the corner. He returned with paper and pen. Brennan examined your ore this afternoon. He performed preliminary tests, specific gravity, streak tests, acid reactions. He knows the silver content. If he's willing to provide a written affidavit detailing his examination and assessment, sworn before a magistrate, would that be enough for a loan? Eleanor asked. It might be, especially if I and other local investors are willing to co-sign based on Brennan's professional opinion. Harrison looked at James. The question is whether Brennan will risk it, providing such testimony without the physical ore to back it up. If he's wrong, or if questions arise later, his reputation is finished. He seemed like an honest man, Daniel offered. When I spoke with him at the livery, a sharp crack from outside cut him off. Sarah dropped to a crouch, bringing the rifle up. Gunshot, north, maybe 200 yards. James was already moving, drawing his revolver. Daniel grabbed his own rifle from beside the door. Dr. Harrison doused the parlor lamps, plunging the room into darkness lit only by the fireplace. Eleanor, take Thomas upstairs, James ordered. Mrs. Brennan, go with them. Eleanor didn't argue. She gathered Thomas, who'd gone very still, very quiet, and followed Mrs. Brennan up the stairs. James heard a door close, a lock turn. At the window, Sarah peered into the darkness. Can't see movement. Could have been. Another shot, closer this time. Glass shattered in an upstairs window. That's the guest room, Dr. Harrison said, where Brennan is sleeping. James's blood went cold. They're not burning evidence. They're eliminating witnesses. He took the stairs 3 at a time, Daniel and Sarah right behind him. The guest room door stood ajar. James kicked it fully open, revolver raised. Moonlight streamed through the broken window. Josiah Brennan sat on the floor beside the bed, back against the wall, one hand pressed to his upper arm. Blood seeped between his fingers. Grazed me, Brennan said through gritted teeth. Dove when I heard the first shot. Lucky. We need to move you, James said, away from the window. Daniel and Sarah helped the assayer to his feet, half carrying him into the hallway. Dr. Harrison was already there with his medical bag, directing them to his examination room on the first floor, a windowless space in the center of the house. As Harrison cleaned and bandaged Brennan's wound, James positioned himself at the front window with Daniel at the back. Sarah took the side window in the examination room. They waited in tense silence, listening for movement, watching for muzzle flash. 15 minutes passed. 20. The town was quieter now, the fire brigade's shouts fading as the bank collapsed into embers. No more shots came. They've made their point, Brennan said finally. He sat on Harrison's examination table, his shirt sleeve cut away, a clean bandage wrapped around his bicep. They know I examined your ore. They know I can testify to its value. They're warning me not to. I'm sorry, James said. I never meant to. Don't. Brennan's voice was sharp. I've worked frontier claims for 30 years. I've seen claim jumpers, corrupt assayers, men willing to kill for a good strike. This consortium, they're worse because they hide behind lawyers and money, but they're the same breed. He looked at James directly. I'll write your affidavit. Tomorrow, first thing. Sworn before the magistrate. They can threaten me all they want. I don't scare easy. Eleanor appeared in the doorway, Thomas behind her. Is everyone? We're fine, James assured her. Mr. Brennan was grazed, but Dr. Harrison has seen to it. Thomas pushed past his mother, running to James. He didn't cry, didn't speak, just wrapped his arms around James's waist and held on. James felt his son trembling. It's all right, James said softly, stroking Thomas's hair. We're all safe. But Thomas had heard too many promises that turned out to be lies. He'd seen his father nearly die twice, watched his sister fight armed men, lived through a siege and a shooting. He was 11 years old, and he knew that safety was something adults said when they wanted children to feel better. Dr. Dahl. Harrison cleared his throat. We should all get what sleep we can. I'll keep watch until dawn. Mr. Brennan, you'll stay in my room tonight. No windows. James, Eleanor, the children. You're welcome to my spare bedroom upstairs, but away from exterior walls. They settled into an uneasy rest. James lay on the floor of the spare bedroom with Eleanor beside him, both fully dressed, weapons within reach. Sarah took first watch at the top of the stairs, Daniel at the bottom. Thomas slept fitfully between his parents, occasionally crying out in his sleep. James stared at the ceiling, listening to the house creak, the wind rattle the eaves, the distant sounds of the dying fire downtown. The consortium had destroyed their ore and tried to kill their witness in the same night. They were escalating, growing desperate, which meant they were afraid. That should have been encouraging. Instead, it terrified him. Because desperate men with money and power were the most dangerous kind. As gray dawn light began to filter through the cracks around the window shade, James heard movement downstairs. He rose quietly, leaving Eleanor and Thomas sleeping, and descended to find Dr. Harrison making coffee in the kitchen. The doctor looked haggard, his usually neat hair disheveled, dark circles under his eyes. "Any trouble?" James asked. Quiet as a grave. Harrison poured 2 cups. "Which worries me more than gunfire would. They're regrouping, planning their next move, or they've already achieved their objective." Harrison sipped his coffee. "The bank is destroyed. Your ore is gone. Your witness is wounded and warned. In 7 days, the loan comes due. What can you possibly do?" James took his cup, warming his hands on the ceramic. Through the kitchen window, he could see smoke still rising from the bank's ruins. The brick shell stood, blackened and hollow. But the interior was gutted. By mid-morning, people would be picking through the rubble, looking for strong boxes, deed papers, anything that survived. The vault might have survived. Stone and iron, built to withstand fire and thieves. If the ore was still intact, "I need to see the vault," James said suddenly. "The building isn't safe. The walls could collapse." "I don't care. If there's any chance the ore survived." "James." Harrison set down his cup. "Even if the ore is intact, even if you can extract it, what then? The consortium will just destroy it again, or steal it, or kill you before you can get it assayed." "Then I'll die trying," James said flatly, "because I'm not letting them win. Not after everything we've survived. Not after what they've done to my family." Harrison studied him for a long moment. "You remind me of my younger brother, stubborn as a Missouri mule. Got himself killed in the war, charging a Confederate position everyone else knew was suicide. Bravery and stupidity look the same from a distance. Which one am I? I haven't decided yet." Harrison refilled his cup. "But I'll help you check the vault. After breakfast, when there's enough light to see what we're doing. And we're taking Daniel and Sarah. If the consortium is watching, I want witnesses." They ate a silent breakfast, porridge and bacon, coffee and bread. Brennan joined them, his arm in a sling, his jaw set with determination. Eleanor picked at her food, her eyes distant. Sarah cleaned her rifle methodically, checking the action, counting ammunition. Thomas sat close to his mother, not eating. As the sun climbed higher, just turning the eastern sky from gray to pale gold, they prepared to face whatever remained in the bank's ruins. James checked his revolver, made sure Eleanor and Sarah were armed, and kissed Thomas goodbye. "Stay with Mrs. Brennan," he told his son. "We'll be back soon." Thomas nodded but didn't speak. His silence was worse than tears. The walk to the bank took 10 minutes. Already, townspeople gathered in the street, staring at the devastation. The brick walls still stood, but barely, cracked and blackened, leaning inward where heat had weakened the mortar. The roof had collapsed entirely, leaving a skeleton of charred timbers. Smoke still rose from the rubble. Cornelius Webb stood near what had been the front entrance, talking with 2 other men. When he saw James approaching, his expression flickered. Surprise, then calculation, then careful neutrality. "Mackenzie," Webb said, "I'm sorry about your ore. The vault. I want to see it." James interrupted. Webb hesitated. "The building isn't stable. The marshal has declared it off limits until I want to see my property. Now." The 2 men with Webb shifted uncomfortably. One was the marshal, a tired-looking man with a drooping mustache. The other James didn't recognize. Well-dressed, expensive coat, boots too clean for frontier work. "Mr. Webb is correct," the marshal said. "The structure is unsafe. We can't allow." "That vault contains 1,000 pounds of silver ore," James said loudly, ensuring everyone in the street could hear. "My property, secured in Mr. Webb's bank for safekeeping. Now the bank has burned under suspicious circumstances, and I'm being told I can't verify whether my property survived. How does that sound to everyone here?" Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Several homesteaders pushed closer, interested now. James recognized Johann Schmidt, Peter Reed, others who'd helped defend the Thornton homestead. Good people who understood what it meant to lose everything to forces beyond their control. The bank's insurance will cover any losses, the well-dressed stranger said smoothly. I'm representing the Territorial Banking Commission. We'll conduct a full investigation. I don't want an investigation, James said. I want to see my ore, right now. The stranger's smile didn't reach his eyes. That's not possible at this time. The vault is buried under several tons of rubble, and the heat may have... Then we dig, Daniel said, stepping forward with a shovel. Carefully, with witnesses. Unless there's some reason you don't want us to see what's in there? The stranger's smile vanished. Are you suggesting... I'm suggesting we stop talking and start digging, Sarah said. She'd borrowed work gloves from Dr. Harrison, and she pulled them on with deliberate care. Unless the Banking Commission has something to hide. The crowd pressed closer, sensing conflict. The marshal looked between James and the stranger, clearly weighing his options. Finally, he sighed. All right, but carefully. If I see any sign the walls are shifting, everyone out. Understood? James nodded. Understood. They entered the ruins in single file. James, Daniel, Sarah, Dr. Harrison. The marshal followed, and reluctantly, so did Webb and the stranger. The interior was a wasteland of ash and charred wood, the floor littered with debris. Heat still radiated from the rubble. James's boots crunched on broken glass, melted metal, the remnants of the bank's daily operations. The vault stood at the back, its iron door warped by heat, but still closed. The stone walls surrounding it had cracked in several places, but they'd held. James's heart hammered as they approached. If the ore had survived... The lock is damaged, Webb said, examining the door. The heat has warped the mechanism. We'll need tools to... Step aside, Daniel said. He'd brought a sledgehammer along with the shovel. This is going to be loud. It took 6 blows to break the lock. Each strike echoed through the ruins, sending up clouds of ash. Finally, the mechanism gave way. Daniel and James pulled the door open, the hinges screaming. Inside, the vault was dark, hot but intact. James stepped in, his eyes adjusting to the dimness. There, in the corner, covered with ash but unmistakable, were the canvas-wrapped bundles of ore. He counted quickly. All of them. Every single pound. It's here, James said, his voice rough with relief. All of it. He heard the stranger curse softly behind him. Webb said nothing. James pulled out one bundle, unwrapping it carefully. The ore inside was discolored from heat, some of the quartz cracked, but the silver veins still visible. Brennan pushed forward, examining the rocks with professional interest. Heat damaged, Brennan said, but the silver content is unchanged. This will still refine just fine. He looked at the stranger. In case you were wondering. The stranger's expression had gone carefully blank. Of course, we're all pleased Mr. Mackenzie's property survived. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have reports to file. He left quickly, too quickly. James watched him go, understanding flooding through him. They'd expected the ore to be destroyed, counted on it. The fire was supposed to eliminate the evidence, not just threaten the witness. And now that the ore had survived, we need to move this, James said urgently. Now, all of it. To where? Dr. Harrison asked. Somewhere safe. Somewhere they can't. My surgery, Harrison said. I have a reinforced storage room in the basement. Built it for medical supplies and narcotics. Thick walls, good lock. They'd have to tear down my house to get to it. They worked quickly, loading the ore into Dr. Harrison's wagon under the marshal's supervision and the crowd's watchful eyes. James made sure everyone saw, made sure everyone knew. Witnesses. Insurance. The consortium couldn't make this disappear quietly now. As they hauled the last bundle, James noticed Cornelius Webb standing alone near the ruins, staring at nothing. Their eyes met across the rubble. Webb's expression was unreadable. Resignation, perhaps, or fear. James almost felt sorry for him. Almost. Back at Dr. Harrison's house, they secured the ore in the basement storage room. Brennan examined each bundle, making notes, calculating weights and silver content. By noon, he had enough for a preliminary written assessment. I'll need to swear this before the magistrate, Brennan said, showing James the document. Make it official. Then you can take it to potential investors. Use it to secure your bridge loan. How long will that take? Eleanor asked. The magistrate holds court at 2 o'clock. I can have this sworn and signed by 3. 6 days, Sarah said quietly. 6 days to find investors willing to loan money based on a written assessment of heat-damaged ore they haven't seen to a family being actively hunted by a criminal consortium. When you put it that way, Daniel said, it sounds almost impossible. Almost, James agreed, but not quite. He looked around the room, at his wife, exhausted but unbowed, at his daughter, hardened by violence but not broken, at Daniel, loyal beyond reason, at Dr. Harrison and Josiah Brennan, risking their reputations and lives for people they barely knew. At Thomas, silent and traumatized but still here, still fighting in his own way. They'd survived the consortium's attacks, defended their home, extracted the ore, lost it to fire, and reclaimed it from the ruins. They'd done the impossible again and again. What was one more impossibility? Dr. Harrison, James said, you mentioned local investors. How quickly can you arrange a meeting? This evening? I'll send messages this afternoon. But James, these are cautious men. They'll want guarantees, collateral beyond just the ore assessment. What kind of collateral? Your homestead, the mining claim, everything you own. Eleanor's hand found James's, squeezing tight, betting everything on one desperate gamble. Again. Set up the meeting, James said. We'll be ready. As Harrison left to make arrangements, Sarah moved to the window, watching the street. They'll try again, she said. The consortium. They can't let us succeed. I know, James said, but they have to find us first, and we're not alone anymore. Outside, the sun climbed toward afternoon. Somewhere in Medicine Hat, the consortium's agents were regrouping, planning their next move. Somewhere in the distance, Thomas Garrett was riding north, carrying the weight of a murdered mentor's investigation. And in Dr. Harrison's house, the Mackenzie family prepared for one final push. 6 days to secure a loan, pay the bank, and buy enough time for justice to catch up with their enemies. 6 days to do the impossible. Again.
Thanks for watching our stories. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more epic adventures. Thanks for watching our stories. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more epic adventures.